Okay, well, welcome everybody to the latest edition of Ed Talks. And in the past, I have been talking to all sorts of people from various parts of the property industry. And today I'm being a little bit bolder insofar as I've got a gentleman called Iain Barton with me, who is actually one of our viewers. And I thought it would be interesting to talk to one of our more experienced viewers to give you, the viewers, a chance to see. I wouldn't say Iain is typical. I'd say he's one of our better ones. But nevertheless, I thought it would be useful and interesting for people who potentially are thinking about using Viewber or interested in Viewber to see the sort of people that will be showing their houses or doing their inspections. So Iain, thank you very much for coming on.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you, Ed.
And I suppose it would be helpful. I'm guessing that most people have some idea of who I am because they're on this podcast. But in terms of who you are, could you give us a bit of background, perhaps, on who you are and what you do?
Yes, so I am one of those people that are definitely a jack of all trades. I am an actor, so I do performing work wherever I can in all different manner of professional engagements, whether that's a stage show, film, TV.
The reason Iain's smiling, by the way, to all those who are listening to this, is that I was asking him beforehand about pausing before we start and pausing at the end and live television and all that stuff. He said, yes, I'll talk about that in a minute. So I didn't actually realize that there was acting that had gone on. So I now feel like a complete fool. Anyway, sorry, go on, Iain.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And that also boils down to doing things like role plays and murder mysteries. And those are sort of one-off sort of little things that keep us sort of going. As side jobs, I've done lots of different things in my past. But one of the main things I'm also involved in is leisure, the leisure industry, sort of working in sports centres as a lifeguard and a duty manager in those roles. And like I say, I'm a jack of all trades, so I've diversified into doing website management, and which has now sort of moved into sort of small business support for people, to sort of setting them up with their social media accounts and sort of giving them an idea of, okay, well, let's do more photography or do a video for your business that will promote it. And then quite recently, I've started doing painting and decorating. Maybe that's something a lot of acting types do and get into. So alongside that, I came across Viewber and could see that it was something that I could fit in along with all of those other different roles and fit into my busy
So
calendar.
how did you come across Viewber? What was how did you come across us?
Yeah, so actually it was someone who I met who wanted help with her website or her business idea. So we met online. It was actually prior to the pandemic sort of lockdown. But we met on a video call and discussed her business and how she wanted to move forward. And I said, right, well, I can set up your website, I can set up your social media channels. And whilst we were talking about it, she mentioned that there's all these different ways of earning some income and filling your calendar. And one of those was Viewber. And I thought, oh, I've never heard of that. I'll write it down. So I jotted it down on my piece of paper with my notes of what we were going to do for her. And then afterwards, I just had a look at the website and I thought, well, that sounds quite interesting. I'd be interested in fitting that in and giving it a go. So I sent an email off and it went from there. And that was a couple of years ago.
I mean, again, for anybody who's listening to this who doesn't know what Viewber is, what Viewber does is connect anybody in the property industry with a network of Viewber members, as we call them, all over the UK, who are happy to go and open a door, take a photograph, do an inspection report, whatever it is, for estate agents, property managers, housing associations, etc., etc. And since we started, one of the undoubted issues that we've come across is that, understandably, people who run their own business are nervous about allowing somebody else to act on their behalf and go and show a property or go and well, particularly go and show a property, which is the main thing. And it's worth pointing out that the reason I started the business was that when I ran a big London estate agency, we used to miss out on a lot of business at weekends and out of hours, particularly with people who were being refused appointments because the estate agent wouldn't do it. So I recognized that there was a gap to fill. So what Iain's doing here as part of his, which is actually, I couldn't have put, if I was asked to describe what somebody does as a viewer, yours would be the absolutely perfect CV in some ways, because of course what it is, it's just fitting it in when you can do it. The whole point of this is that it's not a regular thing. I'm presuming it's not your main source of income. It's just an addition. And so in terms of what you actually do for Viewber, it sounds like there's a lot of stuff you do, which is great, because I have to say, since I stopped working full-time in an agency, I've really enjoyed having a range of different things to do. So I completely get that having a range of things is good. But what is it about Viewbering, about being a viewer that particularly appeals to you? What is it you enjoy about the work?
Well, I think the variety of the work is the biggest thing. And that's even when it's just sort of the same appointment, you're going to go and do a viewing for a property, whether that's to purchase or rent. It's the variety of going along to a new place, a new area, seeing different areas of your local community. Really.
Where are you based, by the way, Iain?
So I'm in Gloucestershire. So I'm in Gloucester, and we've got Tewkesbury, Stroud, out into the forest. I've been down to Swindon to do tomorrow I'm doing a 360 tour in Bristol, North Bristol, thankfully, so it's not too far. And then last week I was up in Worcester and Hereford. So, you know, I've sort of got a big area that I'm willing to go and drive to, really. And you're seeing sort of villages. Again, last week I was in Worcester, and then I was in a field in the middle of nowhere. But it was a beautiful village that I was driving through. So you get to see lots of different places.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, it sounds like you've done quite a lot. So how many appointments have you done so far for Viewber?
Well, I had to have a look, and I was really surprised. It was 200 on there. So yeah.
Over what sort of time frame is that?
So I think my first one was in the summer of 2019, sorry.
Okay, so getting on for a couple of years, so 200 over that period. As you say, it's not going to enable you to buy that Cornwall holiday home. Well, perhaps you already own a Cornwall holiday home, but I'd love to talk about more exotic locations, but we're still not necessarily able to do all that at the moment. I have to say, I've been looking this morning actually at the list of published red and ambers and working out where I can go. And I think the straightforward answer is I think we'll be staying here.
The Faroe Islands or Ascension Island, maybe?
Faroe Islands, well, Iceland, luckily, is one of them. I'm quite a keen fisherman, so Iceland is one of the very few places that we can go to. So I think Iceland will be receiving a few of my COVID-saved pound notes, probably. So
that would be a great place to go. I'd love to go to Iceland as well.
Yeah, that's great. So let's ask you, so that we get your opinions. You've done 200 of these things. What do you think is the most important thing to get right on a viewing?
It's always the introduction and how you sort of meet those people, and you've got such a variety of different people that are coming to properties, whether it be an auction house or just a viewing for rental, and they're all coming from different places, and just sort of understanding who they are and what they want to get from the viewing. If it's a developer, a builder, you know that they're going to get straight in and they're going to look at what they can change to the property to make it into a multi-dwelling. Or if it's someone who's looking for a rental and they're sort of a bit nervous as to, you know, I've heard people say, well, what do I do now? Okay, well, we'll just go and walk through here, and should we look at this first? And you're sort of understanding who the person is straight away. And some people just want to keep themselves to themselves and wander through and not say a word, and that's fine. You know, you just let them do what they want to do and try and interject when you can. But I think that's the key, is sort of that introduction to who you are, what you're doing for them. I hear myself saying to people quite a lot, right, well, I'm a viewer, so I'm here to facilitate the viewing, and you have to sort of say, as part of the viewer, those questions need to be directed to the agent. And I think that helps with a lot of people, that they just relax then, and they can almost sort of chat to you a bit more freely about the property. I find that helpful.
That's a really good point, because that's exactly what we thought would happen, actually, that people, or one of the surveys we did in the first couple of years after we'd launched, did show that people often feel more comfortable when they're with someone who they don't necessarily feel they're being sold to by. And that's not meant to be rude to estate agents. I know it's their job to do that. I was one for 37 years, so I understand exactly how it works. But certainly we feel that when people are more relaxed, they can often say things to you that you might then be able to put into your feedback, which might not necessarily be something they'd have said direct to the estate agent.
Yes, and I think also as well, you'll probably tell me whether this is true or not. I think with those, the feedback that we provide on the viewer, on the viewings, it can be as honest as you like. And you go into a property and you go, well, this auction property, I don't think it's right. It's not going to sell because it's on for too high a value for the amount of work that needs to be done to it. And you're having viewers coming in, and especially the developers, and they're saying this. And part of it is, well, they're just seeing the money side of it, and what they're going to get out of it at the other end. But if you're having every single viewer at that property say the same thing, then I think it's good feedback to send back to the agent to say, well, the property has got a lot of work, and you're asking for a price that is putting off a lot of people. I don't know. Maybe that's
that's exactly what they want to know. I mean, the thing is, it's fairly obvious when you're selling property, particularly when you're selling property, but also when you're renting to some extent, and especially at auctions, you would expect the people who come along to look at, it's a bit expensive, isn't it? And they'd suck in their cheek. They're trying, which is fine, but most people actually aren't like that. Most people are straightforward, fairly reserved, and if they all say the same thing, if you get 6 people around and they all say the same thing, the chances are that, exactly as you say, I think that's a very intelligent response, really, is that, you would want to pass that on. So I think that's entirely fair enough. And I think that's exactly one of the things you want to get right on a viewing. So I think that's perfect. I mean, do you think in terms of what you do, particularly showing, let's make this relevant to showing properties rather than the rest of your life, because it sounds like there are so many things you do. Is there anything you feel you've learned or become better at from your experience at Viewber?
I've learned so much about properties that I didn't know before. Earlier, I was upstairs in our loft, which has been converted into a room. So I sort of had an understanding of some work going on and planning permissions and things like that. But I've been introduced to properties that are non-standard construction, built in a way that I thought, well, I didn't know this even existed. Properties that are made out of like steel frames with like old type council housing, and sort of understanding from developers as to the history of why they were not allowed to be mortgageable, based on one incident where one sort of collapsed, and that's it. All of them are now condemned. Like planning permissions, like the front line of a property, you can have people coming in and saying, "Oh, right, well, this is great potential. I'm going to have a 1-bed house on that plot of land there." And then the other developer will come in and go, well, that's not going to happen because of the line of the front of the buildings along the street. All of these little things I'm sort of picking up as you go along, and it's just brilliant. I sort of take it away and go and do some painting in someone's house and go, oh, right, okay, now I understand why that bit of that building is there, it's part of the structure. Or I've learned a lot.
Yeah, it definitely helps. It helps make, when one's talking about property in any shape or form, it helps to have had the experience, and you're getting a concentrated experience on the viewing side. I mean, I remember it was one of the bits that I really enjoyed doing most as an estate agent was the getting out and about. The problem was, I think, that my bosses didn't realize when I was working in an office sort of how much time one would waste. I mean, going to properties, you clearly cover quite a large geographical area, and you quite enjoy the travel to and from because it's through some nice areas. When I was working in London, you'd spend a lot of time getting stuck in traffic and all that sort of stuff. And it was really quite quite boring, but it wasn't terribly good time for me to spend. You know, my bosses really wanted me in the office, calling up, making new appointments rather than running around.
Yes.
The bit I enjoyed was the running around bit and stopping for a coffee or a fag or whatever it was, you know, and that's the bit I enjoyed. So it's interesting to hear how your experience, you know, you're absolutely typical of what we feel is the right way for people to see properties, which is that they did want to be relaxed. The estate agent doesn't have their time wasted, in inverted commas. I appreciate that everyone wants to probably meet a tenant or a buyer if they can at some point. But then you can do that for a second viewing or a third viewing or whatever it is, perhaps down the line.
I think with the travel as well, this past year, you know, it's been great to be able to get out, because obviously we've been stuck at home. You're I'll just wait a sec. Oh, are you there? Can you hear me?
That's me. Yeah, I'm back again. Listen, let's start that one again, because I think it was me being unstable, not you. I've got BT Infinity here, and I'm in Wandsworth in London. You've expected it to be rocket fast, but needless to say, this is London. So sorry. Start that bit again. You were talking about the travel, Iain. I was interested to hear, and I didn't. So
yes. So I was going to say that this sort of past year, with the lockdown happening, it was fantastic that there was something that I could. Everything else that I was involved with fell away. As you can imagine, the performing industry has just disappeared. That's only just coming back. The leisure centres closed, and so I was left with just Viewbers, and it was brilliant because on one side I was at home homeschooling my children and supporting my wife with that, and then I was able to sort of get out and about. And that driving around was brilliant. It was great headspace to sort of get out and have a journey to somewhere and meet a few people.
Yes, I mean, certainly Viewber as a business has grown quite a lot during COVID. I mean, clearly there have been some people who've been disadvantaged and not able to go out and about, and so I'm glad to hear that it's been useful not only for our clients but also for your mental health, in inverted commas, in somewhere.
Yes,
able to get out and about. Sounds like you've had it tough. I'm always aware with doing these conversations that people have a sort of time span, and we find with these podcasts that people tend to listen to them on their commutes and things. But one question I would like to ask you is, if you could offer any services of Viewber, what do you think it might be, and why would you want to offer it?
Well, the thing I was thinking of was actually something that I've mentioned on an email before, and I don't think it is really sort of the right thing for Viewber, but I'm going to mention it anyway because it's sort of quite interesting, and relates to the kind of properties that you go and visit. And one of them I'm actually going to after this conversation today, is a property that's just been vacated, and everything is still in the property. There's bags of clothes where people have started to bag up and then they've just decided, no, I'm going to leave it all. And you go into some properties and there's just things everywhere. This particular property I visited last summer to do a vacant property inspection. And I rang on the doorbell, knocked the door, opened the key, and I really thought someone was in there, someone still living, because there was items in the kitchen. There was a mattress upstairs on the floor with a duvet half off. And I was a bit thrown. I had to call up the office and say, are you sure there's no one living here? So that leads me into sort of being able to offer clearing of housing, but maybe not clearing a house completely, just providing a service where you go in and glove up, mask up, whatever you need to do, and bin stuff up, take items to a charity shop, move things into one room so it's out of the way, and clear the others, and not clean it to perfection, but just clear it so that a potential buyer can come in and not have to climb over things to get to the window, or walk around the side of a bed that's still in the room because it's in the way. And I appreciate that that's not sort of the same in a suit and smart shirt, kind of going and doing a viewing. But I think that sort of fits in with
No, I
me.
think
I would be happy to
I
do
think
it.
that idea of staging a property is probably quite a good thing, and certainly most of our viewers have the enough common sense to be able to go in and do that. I think the issue we found is that obviously, like any business, when you start up, you need to offer a simple set of services, and then as you go on, everyone's saying, "Can you do this? Can you do this?" And understandably, people like you come up with ideas for things. We then need to try and develop those as we go on, and certainly the idea of using our platform to be able to put customers in touch with other forms of service providers is something that we've thought about. And indeed, as you've already discovered, you've mentioned yourself, you're doing 360 tours, which involves special knowledge, you know, going through our academy, learning how to do bits and pieces, buying the hardware. You know, these things need to be developed over time, you know.
And I think that's in terms of the photography side of things as well. I quite enjoy my photography, and I've got a DSLR camera that I've got, but obviously the photography bookings that we offer at the moment are a basic, you know, phone point and shoot camera, point and shoot with your phone, or doing the video tours, you know, using your phone. And I wonder whether that's sort of an advanced photography. I think there was a photography module that you've put up. I've yet to do it. But whether offering sort of advanced photographs with a wide angle lens, where you see these sort of really glossy photos, it's something that's a lot of us, I'm sure, are capable of doing.
Well, I'm sure we'll be moving more into that, Iain. The fact of the matter is that the industry is fairly well, it's a very competitive side of the industry, that photographs and producing of marketing information, etc., etc. But it's definitely something we'll be pursuing. So I'm sure there'll be a little bit more to come. Well, look, you've been extremely candid, and I really appreciate your taking the time. I know you've got to be somewhere at 11, so I'll give you time to get on and do that. I'm embarrassed about having given you one or two pointers earlier on about how to be in front of a camera when clearly you know an awful lot more about it than me, which is very funny. I love the way you said, "I'll talk about that in a minute," and then brought it out. That was great. I really enjoyed that. So look, thank you, Iain. I appreciate that. And hopefully for anybody who's listening, just the fact that clearly Iain's got his head screwed on and knows what he's talking about is enough to make you think, well, hang on a minute, maybe we should be giving Viewber a bit more. But as I said, describing Iain as a typical Viewber is not meant to be denigrating to anybody, but I think it is it's a real testament to what you're doing, and hopefully to what we're doing, that the business we've got and the skill set you've brought to it have melded to make a good service. So
I've really enjoyed doing Viewber, and it's sort of built up from being something I do now and then to be something that I actually look forward to receiving the notification on my phone and thinking, what am I going to do today, or where am I going to go, and is it going to fit in my calendar? And if all of those apply, it's let's do it, and it's there, and it works really well because it's the details are there, the instructions are clear, and you can just sort it out quite quickly. And I've talked about my mixture of roles that I do. It's just another one of those change of hats that I have. I'll be painting in the morning and then quickly put on a shirt and a pair of trousers and some smart shoes, and off I go to do a Viewber.
Good stuff. Well, listen, I appreciate your time, Iain. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ed. I hope that was usable. Thank you.
Okay. That's great. Listen, Iain, that's lovely. I mean, it's really nice to meet you. And I think I do remember your email, your idea on the
house clearance.
House clearance. And it's definitely one. I mean, the trouble for us is I think a lot of what we do will probably be, whilst it would be a good idea to have Viewbers able to compete for that business as well, it would be, I think we can offer the service where we're going to be able to connect estate agents to those sort of people through our platform. So in other words, if you imagine that a house clearance business could be attached as a sort of Viewber, so they get the job, and then if they can't do it, then it passes through to Viewbers or all View. You know, again, part of what we're doing at the moment is to make sure that people can upskill themselves, make themselves available for more work. And then again, if one ticked a thing saying, yep, I'm happy to do house clearances, then one will get offered that. So definitely something we'll be thinking about. All right.
It's tricky though as well. I appreciate that, you might have a property where it's easily achievable with a few bags and a broom. But like this property, as I was saying, I'm going to in a minute, it's a whole house full of things all over the place, furniture, and yeah, it would be quite a lot of work. But I just sort of, I just have this sort of feeling that with those ones that are quite easily achievable, that it is something that you could offer.
And we'll definitely give it a think. But look, Iain, I really appreciated it, and enjoy your 11 o'clock, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
Thanks, Ed. Good to meet you.
Good stuff. Thanks very much.
Care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.